why you shouldn't quit Twitter, Google gets heavily fined, and does it make a difference? And if your private information tracking is turned off, is it really turned off? This is MacVoices. Today's MacVoices is supported by MacVoices After Dark. Uncensored, off-topic, and always off the wall. MacVoices After Dark is available as a benefit to our Patreon subscribers. Sign up at patreon.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this is MacVoices Live. It's Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time that is, wherever you are. We are live on YouTube at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV. We wish you were here with us in the chat room, like some of our friends are already, and more coming in, so that they can throw their comments, questions, thoughts, whatever. Sort of a weird night because there are a few stories I'd like to touch on. Nothing really, I don't think, super exciting. Well, maybe one, I guess, depending on your point of view. So let's go around the room, see who's here, and we'll get to it. As always, up in the top left corner of my screen, Mr. David Ginsburg. David, good to see you.
Good to see you as well, Chuck. Glad to be here. It's another Tuesday night, and we're going to have some fun.
Absolutely, absolutely. I look forward to Tuesday nights.
Yes, me too.
On the right top of my screen, Mr. Guy Searle. Guy, welcome. Good to have you.
It is good to be here in my gallery kind of way.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, if you're pre-show, you understood that. If not, that makes no sense.
If not, then you're completely lost.
Yeah.
Welcome to my life.
Wow, sorry. No time to mute.
Gesundheit, Jeff Gamet.
Oh.
Hey there.
Hi. If any of you see my spleen sitting around somewhere, I need it.
Got it. I'm sorry. It's right down here.
Thanks. Okay, thanks.
Oh, the cat's got it.
What will you give me for it?
Well, I still have a kidney, so I guess I could trade that.
It's nice. Okay, well, I hope you make it through the show with no spleen, Jeff.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Just don't vent.
Yeah, really.
Right.
Jim Ray has joined us again. Mr. Ray, good to have you. Glad that you got your web server woes at least resolved temporarily.
And my spleen is right where I left it.
On the floor, beside mine.
Good to know. Good to know. And we're sorry that you don't go to any interesting parties. You know.
Actually, I don't know if I assume my spleen is where I left it. I should probably check.
Brittany Smith is here, and she's trying to figure out what she walked in on the middle of.
I don't know. You got a lot of spleening to do.
Yeah.
I see what you did there. Well played.
Oh, that was. She is quick, isn't she? She is quick. Britt, good to have you.
You know the worst thing, as I was going for something else, realized I wasn't going to make it and pivoted to that one.
That was impressive.
Professional.
That was impressive. Hey, this may be more of a PSA than anything, but I wanted to just throw this out to everybody and see if you agree. There was an article, and I'll have to find it and put it in the show notes. I'm sorry I don't have it at my command. But the comment was made, or the suggestion was made, don't leave Twitter. Don't delete your Twitter account. Because if you do, in 30 days, someone else can claim it and then start impersonating you. And you really can't do anything about it because that's the way that Twitter works.
I'm not up to date on things, but is there anything anybody can do about it now?
What do you mean about it?
It was a blue check joke. Sorry.
Oh.
Chuck, you are correct. Yeah. So if the day comes where I choose to leave Twitter as opposed to Twitter choosing to just go 404 on us, I will stop using my account, but I will not delete my account because I need to retain control over it so that no one else can claim it. You know, much like when you go and sign up for an account on social media services you never plan to use, just so you can control your username. It's the same thing. When you leave, don't give up that username. You don't want to give up the control.
Correct.
Right.
And what would be the advantage of giving it up anyway? I don't see that, other than I guess some people think they're making a point, but
That's pretty much all
And-
it is.
and nobody cares. So
Nobody cares.
I would suggest make a pinned tweet with here's where I am now.
I like that.
I would agree. Or just that you've left Twitter in protest, or whatever your goodbye
I've left,
message is.
and now I'm on Mastodon, or now I'm on microblog, or now I'm on Jim's private social service network that you can't get on because no one else is allowed but me.
Okay. Yeah. It just, I mean, it was one of those things that felt like it should be obvious, but I see so many people I'm leaving Twitter. I'm going off. And I can tell you, and I've talked about this on the show a number of years ago now, which is hard to believe it's been that long, but my Twitter account got hacked, partially through a fault of my own, partially through somebody else's fault who fell for social engineering. Bottom line was that I lost control of my Twitter account. And so someone was posting as me things that I would never, under any circumstances, post. Now, I was able to get it back, but in the interim, I was forced to create a second account, trying to recapture things and tell people that, it had been hacked and those nasty things that were being said were not being said by me. And it's a pretty miserable thing. I mean, I don't think I really appreciated how bad it could be when I'm seeing things, come out under my name that really shouldn't. And so I felt like this is something that's important with all the Twitter discussion we've had here on MacVoices and all the Twitter headlines you see every single day right now. Don't leave. Don't delete your account. You want to, like they said, put a hold on it or put a goodbye message or something, but do not delete it, please.
Right.
Don't give up your day tweets.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, there you go. That's just feel that was important. First thing I wanted to touch on, and I'll find my Andrew Orr wrote this up for us, but you probably saw it at some point if you were online anywhere today. Google got its hand slapped pretty good. To the tune of, what was it, $400 million, I do believe, for privacy violations by a whole lot of states' attorneys general. Anybody? I mean, is this significant? Is that significant to Google? Is this anything that is really going to change Google's ways? Anybody have any observations on this?
It won't.
No, it won't.
Well,
they've dealt with this a 1,000 different times, and unfortunately, most of the people, at least here in the United States, that are doing these lawsuits, they don't do them expecting there to be any kind of change. They do it because it gets their name out there, and it's a terrible thing to do just to have a little bit of advertising for yourself. If you're actually going to try to do something great, then do that, but don't do it just for the pub.
Yeah.
All right. So here's my take. This will change Google's actions. However, it will not change them in the way that that the states are hoping. What I think will happen is that Google will refine its methods for collecting and exploiting our data. And I'm using exploit in a dictionary, not an emotional sense. What's going to really change is that the way they do this will protect Google more than it currently does. So it may not be as obvious, even though we will supposedly have better transparency about what Google is doing. But whatever happens, it will be changes that are designed to benefit Google and maintain their ability to do what they do.
Okay.
as it always is. And frankly, and Jeff, it doesn't matter whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Google, Apple, any of them. They're going to do everything they can that's going to benefit them to the detriment of pretty much everybody else. Especially, well, let me rephrase that. Especially companies that rely strictly on advertising and or focused advertising.
Okay, so I think I would take issue with to the detriment. I guess it depends on how you interpret that, because I don't think they're doing this just to be evil. I mean, they're trying to make money. That is their business model.
Well, I didn't say it was evil. I just said that they're going to do what is going to best benefit them. Jeff is right.
So, I mean, and we all know this about Google. This is one of the things I wanted to get to is, how comfortable are you using Google services knowing that they are gathering information on you for the purpose of selling ads and information to advertisers back at you?
I think most of us have known that for years. I mean, it's no news here. We keep doing it anyway because, honestly, their services are decent. I mean, you really can't find anything else close that's as good as what they provide. But some people feel otherwise.
And as consistent.
Right.
You mean
there's a difference. There's a difference between being comfortable with what's happening and being resigned to the fact that it's happening.
Ah, interesting. Okay. So have you surrendered, Jeff? Is that what you're saying?
Essentially, if I didn't need to use Google services all the time, like basically every single day, I have to rely on Google services, and that's just a fact of the way the industry I'm in works. There's no way I could do what I do without Google Docs being a thing and Google Drive being a thing.
Okay.
I'm the same way. I mean, I pay for a workspace account for my podcast, and I find the show notes that I do every week it's just invaluable with what Docs does. Google Drive provides great storage, and there's times I've had to share something outside of my drive, and I don't have to worry about space since I have work because I've got the workspace account, and it's just hard to resist it. I mean, same thing with schools. Schools are using workspace big time. I mean, is there privacy there? I mean, I'm sure they know what's going on in school systems. They're just the big gorilla in the room. They're just a big company, and then that's what they do. I mean, and we have to just kind of live with it, I guess. I mean, unless there's something else better out there we're not aware of. I mean,
well, when I woke up this headline, I had some mixed reactions. There was part of me, the privacy advocate that says, good, they got slapped. There's another part of me that says, I'm not quite so sure that, that's necessarily a good thing. Or is this just the cost of doing business for Google? That once in a while, they're going to push an edge somewhere and somebody's going to, try to slap them back and make some money, because we all know that that's a big piece of it for some of these states' attorneys general. And so, okay, they had to pay $400 million. Was that to send a message to Google? Is that enough?
No.
Well, they had to pay $400 million, and they had to agree to fix the thing that got them in this specific position, which is they were continuing to record data in certain situations when users had unselected that option in their account settings. So they will have to do one of two things. They will have to stop doing that and and make that "don't track me" setting actually not track you, or they will have to find a way to do that where it doesn't
Get them caught.
there you go, where it doesn't get caught.
Don't get caught.
I'm not cynical at all.
No, we could tell that guy. We could tell that. Jim?
Could they just remove the do not track option?
Probably not.
Why not?
Because my assumption is that that would run afoul of well, at least outside the United States, particularly in the EU. That would be a
maybe in
problem.
the EU, but we're talking about states right now. This case was brought by U.S. states. So
my guess is it would California would be able to find some way with their current laws that this is a problem, or if not, California or another state would enact legislation that would require the do not track feature to be there and to be actually functional. So I think it would be in Google's best interest, even if they can take the feature out, to not take it out, because they have more control over what they can do with the feature if it's a voluntary thing that they've created as opposed to something that's government mandated.
This edition of MacVoices is supported by our Patreon subscribers and MacVoices After Dark. Ever wonder what happens before the MacVoices live shows? Or what happens when the show ends or after the live feed closes? That's where MacVoices After Dark comes in. If you are a Patreon supporter at any level, you get access to the video of our off-camera conversations. Uncensored, unedited, and always off the wall. It's a small thank you to our Patreon supporters who want to peek behind the curtain. Become a Patreon subscriber at patreon.com/MacVoices. And thanks to everyone who supports the show. Okay, so let's overlay the Apple discussion on this and some of the stories we've seen in the last couple of weeks about Apple's tracking. That, as some security researcher determined that Apple is actually sharing or receiving a lot of information from your devices let me try that again. Receiving information from your Apple devices that's going back to Apple. Is this the same thing if Apple is not using it to target ads, but to improve the services that they offer, the products and services?
Is this the story from the App Store?
I don't think this is an App Store story. I think this was a security researcher that, and I mean, for some reason, he seemed to be surprised by the fact that.
I'm trying to figure out how this is news.
I thought that it was for ads, actually, but I could be remembering a different story than you're thinking of.
Okay, maybe so.
But that it was
Apple,
not linked
sorry, go ahead.
to people in that way.
I was under the impression that with Apple's new push toward ads injected into a lot of their services, that they're basically going to be doing something very similar to what Google is doing.
Okay, then maybe I read it wrong, or maybe I'm understanding it wrong. Before we go further, I want to welcome Kelly Gamont. She has arrived.
Hello,
Fashionably late, but always good to have her.
Norm.
Kelly, we're talking. Kelly, we're talking about the Google $400 million fine, and what Apple's doing as far as. Well, I'm trying not to characterize anything. Receiving information from Apple devices that they're being sent back to Apple, and there seems to be a disagreement, or not even a disagreement. Just we're not sure if we're all talking about the same thing. Are they pulling this information back for advertising, or is because there was I've got to find it. There was a security researcher who came out and indicated, Apple is tracking you. Even if you said don't track you, it's tracking you from the Apple products and services perspective. Which to Jeff's point, why this is news. I mean, if I'm using iCloud, they need to know where I am and how I'm logging in and that's just sort of the nature of it. So I'm not sure if this is a non-story or not. I don't know if you have any insights or not.
The first of all, it's great to be here. If you had asked me how I was doing, I was trying to think of a good Mr. Peterson response from Cheers. I'm sure I've got a few rattling around in my head. There's a certain amount of, because this activity is happening on a mobile device that is being sent back to Apple for lots of different legitimate reasons. Like if I'm logging in to my iCloud account in Portland and my address is Portland and the shipping address is Portland and all that, then if Chuck tries to log in on the opposite coast, it should maybe go, wait a minute, 10 minutes ago you were in Oregon. No. And that's just a security measure. And there's a lot of security stuff that uses like the IP range you're using, and by virtue of the fact that you are in a location when you log in, which is kind of going to be the case for everybody, that's going to happen. I think there's more. It seems like every once in a while we get these stories periodically where, did you know how much stuff Apple has about you? And the difference is Apple is either using it for basic sort of anodyne transactions, like benevolent things like, I'm in Oregon, and if somebody tries to log in 10 minutes later from the far side of the world, it's probably one of them is incorrect. One of them is not, in fact, actually me. We don't have that technology yet. Once Apple has that event, we can have a very different conversation about two-factor and IP ranges and logging into things securely. But until then, there are certain things like that Apple is tracking that I think people get reminded of occasionally and then sort of become aware of all over again. And so the difference is that when Apple gets that location information, they're using it for something like, is it actually you logging in? Or they're using it for, what Apple Store is closest to you if you need a Genius Bar appointment, those kinds of things, as opposed to Google, who is taking all of that and using it as part of their business model. It's not part of Apple's business model to aggregate consumer data and sell it off. And I think that, for me, that's the fundamental difference when I interact with Google services versus Apple services versus I try to avoid, I minimize my Facebook interaction for those things. And that, I think, is part of the issue. Is every once in a while somebody realizes this and then goes and talks to their journalist friend about it, and we get a story, and then a bunch of people get worked up. And like Jeff was saying, how is this news? It's been happening as long as you've had an iPhone. That big screen of text that you never read and you just hit agree so that you can get back to playing Angry Birds. It says, this is all the stuff we're scooping off your phone for you.
So, Dave found the article, or at least an article referencing the event I was thinking about. And it's in our private chat room. I also threw it into the YouTube chat room. But this is the one where, so it allegedly says that, your Apple is giving you the opportunity to turn off device analytics altogether. And in fact, it's not. Mm-hmm. I struggle with this because I just don't understand why anybody would have the expectation, with all the services and capabilities that an iPhone and an iPad provide, that Apple would not be getting this information.
But if it says it's off, it should be off. It will mean your phone doesn't work, but it should actually be off if it says it.
Okay. Well, that's not an unreasonable
and
position.
I don't know what it actually said on there, like what the messaging was, but if the messaging is saying, hey, the stuff is off, it should be off.
Right. But I think I feel like this is going to be one of those things like slowing down your phone, slowing down your iPhone 6. We're doing this so your phone doesn't crash. Well, I want my phone to crash, so I'm mad at you, Apple. It kind of feels like that's what people want out of this is fine. I should get to turn off my cell phone radios and never make a call. Okay. Ever. Yeah. No, I wanted a $1,200 iPod Touch. You do you. Yeah. So, I think because there are certain things, and I think part of it is also like what you agree to in some of whether it's a services agreement with Apple or, specifically for Apple Music or using the Apple Retail app, or it's something like Fitness Plus. I think there's certain things that you agree to on those, which are separate from having an iCloud account. And I know, I'm going to look at the article again, but I think one of the things that people were complaining about was like one of the things that makes your login more secure, and and people have agreed to all of these things at some point. So, Jeff, I feel like you and I have talked about this on a podcast at least a couple of times.
We have, yes.
About in different iterations of phones. Like we've talked about, this is what's happening, and this is, and that and I think part of it is also that talking about the data your phone collects and, all those kinds of things can be kind of boring. And because it starts to fall under security and data privacy, and the next thing you know, people are asleep. And they kind of gloss over it because it's not, but I can shoot 4K video at 60 frames per second, or whatever. So, it's not sexy, it's not fun, and it's not very approachable, to really understand it.
But I guess the problem is that, you're right, it's not sexy. Maybe except to maybe us, but it's not sexy. But at the same time, it's important to understand.
Absolutely.
And have realistic expectations. This is a terrible analogy, but I'll do it anyway. Because your iPhone, the iPhone throttling was a perfect example. My car has a speedometer that I think, if I remember correctly, without going and looking, says that it could potentially go 120 miles an hour. Now, I haven't tried to get it to 120, but I kind of have my doubts. So should I be suing the car company saying you're misleading me?
Yeah. And,
and again, that's not the best analogy, but it's just this constant beating on Apple and honestly Google. Somehow I feel like I'm partially defending Google because we all want these services. We all want the convenience. We want a geofence so that in our pocket on our phone, so that when we get home, our lights pop on and the music starts to play. Well, that means the phone has to know where we are, so therefore it's tracking us.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, but the issue is that they were recording that. They could do that and forget it immediately.
But then how does it know I'm home?
Somehow it has to know where your home is.
You're home right now.
Yep.
But how does my phone know? Like my phone knows to unlock my door when I'm in the driveway of my house. And if I don't let my iPhone know my location and I don't give my doorbell permission to unlock when I come home because I don't want anyone to know coming and going.
I thought we were talking about Google hanging on to information and, knowing that on Tuesday, October 12th at 3:52, you visited the, pawn shop or whatever.
Got to get rid of those Android phones somehow.
I mean,
Jeff, you want in?
Sure. I just did this crazy thing and I read the article.
What?
And
why would you do such a thing?
I am out of control. Okay, so here's the problem according to these analysts. Analytics data, not stuff like, hey, where am I, so that HomeKit knows to turn on the lights kind of stuff, but analytics, like the kind of data that you can collect to create a fingerprint profile of a device and who it belongs to. All of that kind of data. That's what they're talking about here. And when you turn off that analytics tracking feature, it's turning it off for everything except Apple apps. There are different levels of information that Apple is collecting depending on the apps. Like for the health app, it's grabbing basically nothing. So that's good. But for other Apple apps, it's collecting, even with that setting turned off, what device it is, what your screen resolution, what time of day is it, where are you, how many taps are you doing, just all of that stuff. And for other apps, it's not being collected when the setting is off. So if this is correct, what these researchers are claiming, then yes, this is a problem for Apple, and they need to stop doing this now. Not like, hey, in the next update, they need to go to whatever server is tracking this data tonight and hit the button that turns off that tracking. And then they need to explain why they chose to violate their own settings, and they need to give us a big apology. And you can bet there will be some sort of government investigation into Apple's data collection, just like we had with this Google case that started the conversation.
Yeah, and honestly, this isn't why I'm mad at Apple for misrepresenting information and what's collected, because we get because I'm going to continue to tilt at this windmill. Apparently, at least I am a tiny bit self-aware, and that is TikTok. And Apple keeps putting it in the collection of essential apps for your iPhone and iPhone apps to download right now. And right at the top of the App Store, there's always a list, and it's got like TikTok and some other stuff on it. And Apple's like, you should have this and it should be on your phone. And, all the time on the App Store, you see it above the fold. Like almost every time I go to the App Store, it's in some list that is right at the top of the screen. And it is scooping data off. It is sending that data off to places that not everybody knows where it is. People who are representing TikTok have testified to Congress that they aren't certain about where all that stuff goes either. And they can't guarantee that it's not going to people who maybe shouldn't have it. And Apple continues to put it out there like it's fine, and it's not fine. And that's a thing that also irks me, because Apple continues to bang their own privacy drum and pat themselves on the back for this kind of stuff. And then every time I turn around, the App Store is trying to tell me I should download something that has a long and storied history of not being particularly secure.
Yeah, but Kelly, I see that as something different. I mean, first of all, we'll go down this avenue.
They can leave it in the App Store, but they don't have to continue to give it free advertising. That's all I'm saying.
Well, but of course they're going to give it free advertising, because it's something that that facilitates Apple's objective of selling iPhones. And so, I don't have a problem with it as much, because that to me it's up to you. Pardon me. It's up to you or me to decide whether we're going to share that information with TikTok.
But it's not. That's the thing.
Well, sure it is.
No, because there's story after story about, how you turned off all that stuff in TikTok?
Well, okay, but that's a TikTok issue.
Right.
Okay.
And so all I'm saying is Apple can't have it both ways. That's the part that I'm grumpy about, is they can't continue to talk about data and privacy and security. And like there was a billboard here in town for a while, privacy, that's iPhone and all of that. And then go, you know what app you need on your phone? The one that shares all of your data and we're not sure who it's sharing it with, and we're going to continue to tell you about it all the live long day. I don't like it.
Yeah, but you know what? I think there'd be lawsuits over that. If Apple's, unless they put something in their terms of service, then or their app store guidelines that require it. And I think if that happened,
they could just stop pimping it. They don't have to put it on at the top of the App Store in an Apple curated collection on the regular. That's the part that irks me.
I hear what you're saying, and I guess that's for loud.
I said I was tilting at a windmill. I know. Yeah. I am very self-aware on this.
Yeah, I mean, I hate this. Oh man, I hate to say this, but they're a business, and
yes,
again, they're going to promote something because people love TikTok, whether it's a good idea or not, whether it's
a terrible idea. But yes.
Well, yeah, I kind of tend to agree. But at the end of the day, I mean, we had this discussion a couple of weeks ago and I think Brittany was the one that said, one of the best places to build a following right now is TikTok.
It is.
That's where the people are. Mm-hmm. Just like that was the place to build a following a while back with Facebook, because that's where the people are. Mm-hmm. And so, it just is, I don't know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Anything else on this story before we move on? Because I I didn't expect to spend this much time on it, but I do think it's interesting. I just find this really strange that this is such a big deal that that Apple is tracking the use of its own apps. Now, and for advertising or not, but anyway. The panel is back in the next edition of MacVoices to talk about Russian code in Army apps and maybe yours. And we start a discussion of CarPlay head units. That's next time on MacVoices. I'll see you then. As always, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.